He's a traitor for 39% of Americans, a patriot for 35%. 4 months after his first bombshell revelations, Edward Snowden is still being sought by the United States. But such global shockwaves have been sparked by his leaks that the former NSA contractor has become almost untouchable. An endless stream of disclosures has pushed Washington further into an inextricably awkward predicament. Fresh reports in Britain's Guardian newspaper, the first to have published Snowden's leaks, suggest the telephones of 35 world leaders have been monitored by the NSA. The document from 2006 doesn't give names, but says the NSA encourages senior officials of the administration and government to share their contact details with the agency. One anonymous official alone is said to have passed on 200 numbers. It set another cat among the pigeons, sparking a fresh escalation in the simmering diplomatic crisis between Washington and its allies. It's becoming increasingly difficult for Barack Obama to limit the consequences of this incessant flow of revelations and counter the lingering Cold War atmosphere it's created. The bugging of Angela Merkel's mobile phone is particularly embarrassing. Friends don't do this sort of thing, Berlin says, while the United States has been desperately emphasizing the importance of its friendship with Germany, insisting that a few lines in the press are not going to undermine that.
Our Washington correspondent Stefan Grober asks the head of one of Germany's largest private non-profit organizations, the Bertelsmann Foundation, to help gauge the potential for worsening relations between that country and the United States. Legal specialist and political analyst Annette Heuser responds on the transatlantic NSA spying scandal. The Foundation's executive director in the U.S. Capitol says, the question is not only whether the Chancellor's cell phone has been bugged or whether the German government has been bugged. The general question is whether friends can put up with operations like these. The answer is definitely not. The Obama administration isn't doing itself any favors by downplaying the whole affair and saying we won't do it anymore and that's it. We're witnessing the beginning of a foreign policy tsunami that's going to bother American and European transatlantic policy for quite some time.
Der die Europapolitik und die transatlantischen Beziehungen noch sehr beschäftigen wird.
And this was the president whom many in Europe wanted for the US. Their feelings were hurt when, swiftly following his 2008 election victory, he showed he wasn't that into them. He was more attentive to Asia, perhaps taking Europe's good nature for granted. Our expert says, I believe that there is a tendency here in the US and in this administration not to take relations with Europeans seriously, and to believe that scandals and problems can easily be brushed away. This is a fundamental mistake. We've also noticed that the Obama administration, like no other US administration in post-war history, has lost the ability to understand the Europeans and to read them accurately. This is a huge problem for transatlantic relations. Until now, there's been a deep-rooted trust between Europeans and Americans, especially between Germans and Americans. But this scandal now contributes to a situation in which this trust is being eroded and is no longer an essential part of these relations. In 2011, Chancellor Merkel was the first European leader Obama invited to dinner at the White House. It served a double function, to honor her and to somewhat wash away the bitterness in many people's mouths that the Bush administration had left. According to Annette Heuser, this scandal will have very important consequences for the future of transatlantic relations. Until now, we have always said that the lowest point in these relations, especially between Germany and the US, was the struggle over the Iraq war in 2003. It was the question of whether to intervene militarily in Iraq. The German government at the time under Gerhard Schröder clearly opted against it, but that was merely a question of military strategy. What we are seeing right now is much more fundamental. We are dealing with trust. This trust is disappearing from transatlantic relations and will take decades to rebuild.
Und dieses Vertrauen wieder aufzubauen, wird Jahrzehnte dauern.
When the scandal of US data gathering on individuals whose affairs Europeans protested were none of the Americans' business surfaced scalding into the public view in June, Merkel sort of mumbled it off. Yet many people, especially where she has her roots in the former East Germany, where the secret police spied on everyone for decades, were revolted. Häuser predicts what will happen in the future is we're going to see much more serious debate about the degree to which our intelligence services cooperate with US intelligence agencies. The question will be what role European and German intelligence services will play and what the limits of intelligence operations will be when it comes to privacy and the individual freedoms of our own people.